Someone object, we'll have to.
Okay, we're going to call the Village of Gates Mills Council meeting for June 20th, 2023 together. I mean. All together.
Aton, Deacon,
Present.
Turner,
Here.
Welsh.
Here,
Would somebody make a motion to excuse
I would like to make a motion to excuse Chip and to,
Chip and
Craig.
Craig?
And Mike.
and Mike?
all of them.
A second?
Second.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes,
Great. Next is minutes of the regular council meeting of May 9th, 2023.
move to approve.
We made a couple small changes. David found one on page 7 in the first paragraph. 3/4 of the way down, it says compiled, and it should have said,
Other way around.
it should say compiled. Yes. Okay. And then on the first page for the treasurer's report, I said it would Steve was not on attendance, not in attendance.
Oh, okay.
So we had a motion from Ed.
We need a second.
Yes, Sanders said. Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes,
Thank you. Next is pay ordinance 1274 for $654,260.02.
move to approve.
I had a question, second, I had a question about the Southeastern.
Sandra, put the mic. We can't hear you.
Had a question about the Southeastern Equipment Company, 172,000. Loader, okay,
Is that it?
second, yep.
Any other questions?
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes,
Welsh.
Yes.
Next is financial statement treasurer's report. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. The financial report was just put onto the website around noon today. We waited intentionally a few extra days this month to be able to hear from Rita what our tax receipts for the month of June would be. Likely be at least to date, as those are important to know. You'll see in a minute. So the financial statements have been provided to the mayor, the clerk, and council prior to the June council meeting. The general fund, our revenue for the month was $632,000, consisting of $144,000 of real estate tax revenue, almost $400,000 of municipal income tax revenue, and $89,000 of other revenue. The tax amounts represent collections by the taxing agencies, the county and Rita, that are forwarded to the village. The village is dependent on the timing of those agencies' billing and collection activities and on the timing of taxpayers' remittances. For real estate taxes, we're back on track. Receipts are dependent on the seasonal nature of the tax due dates, payments by the property owners, and county remittances. For the first 5 months of 2023, real estate taxes are essentially equal 99% to the prior year amount. During the month of May, we caught up with what was a slow collection start through April. As the underlying bases of collecting real estate taxes have not changed, we can still expect the budget amount for the full year. Municipal income tax revenue was $399,000 in May. You will recall in last month's report that receipts through April were less than they were in 2022. For the 5 months in 23 now, income tax revenue of $840,000 is below 22 amounts by $531,000. We have been conferring with Rita on expectations for 23 collections, see whether their previous guidance to us, from which we developed our budget of $2.6 million, is different. Their updated projection is now $2,125,000. This $500,000 possible shortfall between budget and projection is due to two things. A, there are 3 taxpayers in 2022 who will not pay this tax in 2023 because they have moved their principal residence from Gates Mills, and one taxpayer who is no longer employed. And secondly, as reported last month, we had a refund of $115,000 paid in 23 due to a 22 taxpayer when he and she finally turned in their ultimate return. Other source, by the way, as I alluded to, so Janet and I chased this down, and for the month of June, of course, those numbers not in here. For the month of June in 22, we received 269,000. For the month of June in 23, we received 343,000, so up 75,000. So this will vary every month, but we are looking at probably a shortfall, a large shortfall, frankly, in our income taxes so far this year. 2,000,001 would put us well over our average over the years, which has always been $1,700,000, $1,800,000, but less than what we had planned. Other source of revenue of 394,000 to date is favorable due to higher rental income from the cell tower, 10,000 additional, and higher Mills building rental income from a one-time payment by a tenant in January of 23 that was paid differently in 22. As to expenditures, the month of May was $601,000. As you know, I normally report that our operating costs are about $450,000 a month. This large difference is due to the service department loader purchase just mentioned, as was planned and was budgeted. Our legal and professional fees are down as invoices for legal services have lagged last year. The village has now received those invoices and will be reviewing and scheduling them for payment in June and July. Income tax expense is down as a function of lower collections. For the first 5 months of 23, our expenditures were $2,874,000 compared to $2,571,000. The 23 amount includes $496,000 of transfers from the general fund. That amount was $451,000 the previous year. Excluding those transfers, our cash expenditures therefore were $2,378,000 in 23 and $2,120,000 in 22. Police department was generally on budget in 23. The fire department spent greater amounts on ambulance and EMS costs due to more emergency calls. And I think the chief will tell us in a few minutes in his report that there's even been more emergency calls in 23 compared to 22. And the service department, as was mentioned, we spent more on vehicle maintenance, upgrades to the Mills building, and the new loader purchase. So overall, for the first 5 months of the year, the village has operated with a general fund shortfall of $261,000. Recall that the village records are on the cash basis and that we were just at the halfway point of the year. The general fund cash balance at the end of May was $7,550,000. We started the year at $7,811,000. As to the other funds, we maintain other special purpose funds by either statute or contract. Cash in these funds amounted to $1,891,000 at the end of May. The ARPA funds that have been awarded to us and received by Gates Mills have been deposited into the ARPA fund, and we now have approximately $380,000 accumulated in that fund for the Mayfield Road culvert replacement. The Budget and Finance Committee met on May 31st at 4:30 in an open meeting. We discussed the general fund year-to-date results and expectations given the shortfall expected in tax revenue. We talked about the special projects that are underway and the different funding sources. We discussed the road program. The investments review, which was on the agenda initially, was postponed just because the meeting was full, and we'll have that at the next meeting. We also discussed the importance of doing some financial due diligence on the potential expansion of the Gavi space to make sure from a business standpoint that that's looked at, not just from an architectural and aesthetic point of view. I know that's a lot of numbers, so and I again just make point, we held off putting them on here until I had some comfort level on what June's taxes might be. So if you have questions after the meeting or as you read this, feel free to give me a call or an email. Answer them after you've had a chance to look at them. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next is mayor's report. I want to say that we had on June 10th, the historical and village selling of the signs, which was very well attended and very successful. We took in about $10,000 for the evening and are still selling signs. And you can call Jean or Dorothy at the town hall if you're interested in purchasing a street sign. July council meeting, we're going to have a report from the Land Conservancy. We need to have a special council meeting because we need to pass our legislation with 5 people. So we'd like to have a few dates or a few times when everybody's going to be here. This next week, you come back, Lori. Are you here next week, all week?
I come back Wednesday night, so I'm not here Tuesday.
Say that again?
I come back next Wednesday night.
Next Wednesday?
Mhm.
Okay, so it would have to be Thursday or Friday. Okay. What about you, Sandra? Thursday or Friday of next week? Oh, she's. David, while she's looking?
Fine.
And Sandra's fine?
It's good.
And Ed?
I'm working Monday, Tuesday and Friday.
If it was in the morning,
I work 6 to 6,
6 to 6?
6 A to 6 P. But I'm off Wednesday and Thursday.
Looks like Thursday would be
Yeah.
okay.
Sounds like Thursday.
Looks like Thursday.
All right, well, we'll take all that into consideration and contact Craig, Mike, and Chip.
What
So-
does it appear to be?
Pardon me?
What day and time does it appear that would work next week?
Thursday at the moment.
Thank you.
It could be either. I don't, we'll have to see if with the other 3, because we need 5, so.
All 4 of them can be here, and I know Craig said any, so hopefully.
We'll come up with a date. And we'll let you know as soon as we can. Okay, thank you. Next is clerk's report.
Couple things. There is a swing that showed up at Marston Park. It's a cute little thing. It has, if you've not seen it, 2 stations. One is for a toddler with a bucket seat, and the other one is a toddler and a bigger kid, and it's all one glider unit, and the toddler's at the top and the little kid's at the bottom. And I just wanted to say, I kind of thought maybe it came about from the comprehensive plan. I know no swing has always been a complaint, but kudos to whoever did that.
Okay, so it kind of came out of the Improvement Society, had not the comprehensive plan, but that's okay. And that's actually an adult swing and a baby swing. So adult is supposed to be able to swing with a baby.
Well, I have a 4-year-old who makes the adult
Yeah, well,
work.
anyway, so that's, anyway.
It was
good,
very nice.
Good, great.
One other thing, I know it's way ahead of time, but in November, the 3rd Tuesday is 2 nights before Thanksgiving. And I know I won't be here, and I'm just wondering if we might have a quorum problem. Maybe we could look at calendars and come back to this in a couple months, but maybe we need to do an alternative date. If we aren't going to have a quorum, it's like the 21st of November.
Okay, we can look at that.
That's it.
Thank you. Next are committee reports, comprehensive plan, Sandra.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The 8th meeting of the advisory committee was held on May 16th at the Community House. There were 17 out of the 25 advisory committee members. Prior to that meeting, Chip and I reached out to all of the advisory committee members to see if there were any issues that they wanted addressed at that final meeting. So in addition to looking over the edits that came from the prior month's meeting, we also wanted to make sure that they had a chance to kind of circle back with any issues that were outstanding. We also talked with Todd Hunt in advance, the area zoning expert. As you know, he's taken on that role, right, Todd, from Bruce Rinker. And we asked him to take a look at the draft at that point, especially with regard to the zoning, to see if there was anything that maybe needed to be clarified or deleted or, or added. And Todd replied that that the zoning issues for review and consideration of amendments were reasonable and defensible if challenged. And additionally, he suggested that revisions may make zoning regulations even more defensible if challenged. So we reached out to Todd because that was something that was recommended, that we have him take a look at the plan before it was finalized. I don't know if Todd, if you want to add anything to what I said?
Push the
I did review it and I reviewed every page. I looked at the zoning issues that were raised. I don't make the decision whether they're reasonable or proper, but legal. And so all of them, I believe, would pass muster if the council decided to move forward with them.
Okay.
There are always individual circumstances involved in some of that. And of course, the provisions in the comprehensive plan are more general and not specific.
Yeah. Okay.
But, I found what's in there is appropriate for a comprehensive plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the meeting was held and each of the text edits from the prior meeting were reviewed. There were some recommendations made, as is typical. Chris Hopkins came out then with a summary. It is on the website now. David reminded me that we didn't have it out there. So that summary of the meeting, who attended, and the edits that were made are out on the website now. So we also finally asked the advisory committee if they would prioritize the goals and objectives, which they did prior to the meeting. And at that meeting, those goals and objectives were compared with what came up at the town hall meeting. And again, that's on the website, and you can see that there was some remarkable similarities between what came up at the town hall meeting of 78 people and the advisory committee members who again did their priorities separately. So at this point, Chris Hopkins is, tidying up the report. There's, documents and references that are included in it. It'll be prettied up, so to speak, and submitted to us, to the mayor and council, probably by the end of the month. And then I would assume that the mayor would call a meeting for us to review and discuss that comprehensive plan.
correct. Excuse me, do you want to stand and speak or? What, are you, what is it?
I'm
It's out of
a
order.
resident of Gates Mills, and I pay taxes on both my business and my home. So I would like to be able to make a comment unless you have some rule that says only you get to talk for 2 hours, and then at the end of 2 hours, we get 5 minutes. Which is pretty much how it goes. At which point 80 to 90% of the audience is gone or exhausted.
Well, we don't get a
so-
lot of people to come to the meeting, sir. However, we are talking about the comprehensive
I
plan.
know, and that's
So
what I
I
want.
will give you 2 minutes to talk on the comprehensive plan.
Thank you so much. How much have we spent on the comprehensive plan, and is there a cap on how much we're going to spend? That's my question.
Yeah, good question. There was a cap that the council voted, $57,500 for the comprehensive plan. That was going to be my last item on the report, and that is that, we have not received an invoice for some time. And Chip and I decided that we would wait until the end, which we're at the end now. And we are going to have a meeting with Chris to look back retrospectively over the whole experience and negotiate we'll take a look at the final invoice and negotiate. There were extra things that were done relative to the planning process. But there was also, quite frankly, more additional work that that Chip and I actually did. And so that's where we feel we need to sit and talk. So we don't have a final number at this point, but hopefully you'll trust that Chip and I are going to negotiate the best we can on behalf of the village, and ultimately come back to the council for approval of a final number.
And we will set up for a special workshop for the comprehensive plan once we get it back and whatnot, and everybody has time to digest it. Steve, did you want to say something in relation to the comprehensive plan?
Just on the numbers, good question, and I think we reported on those 2 meetings ago, so I'll go back and take a look. The council did appropriate a certain amount of money. I believe it was $65,000. Don't hold me to that exact amount of money. We've paid probably 60,000 so far through what I recall as January. We certainly will never pay a 6-figure fee. If you want to walk away with a number in your mind, it's probably something like $75,000, just to give you an order of magnitude number. But I think, as Sandra and Chip said, we did ask for some additional work. The consultants will support what they're asking for. There'll be conversations back and forth, and we'll end up and report the final number.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Sandra? Is that
That's it.
great? Thank you so much. Next is the Charter Review Committee. Lori,
May I ask a question?
what?
And the mayor, actually, you expect to have this conversation with council about the comprehensive plan in July?
Yes, we hope to. Depends, but I'll be setting up a meeting. I'm not gonna we're gonna have a workshop on it. So
Good.
the
So it'll be
plan will
separate.
be presented to all of you and you'll digest it, and we'll come to a workshop and we'll discuss it.
Good. Thank you.
Lori?
Thanks, Mayor. For the Charter Review Committee, our committee chair is in the process of setting up what I hope is our final meeting. And so we'll have recommendations after that. Okay, and then for broadband.
Okay, you want to go on to broadband?
The next item on the agenda. So we met with our consultants. Recall we hired Reconsulting to do a financial viability study. They're in the process of doing that. We met with them for a progress update. They are right now focusing on mapping to determine the number of fiber miles and the number of households that are in the village in order to determine the financial feasibility. We've scheduled a further update meeting and expect the report by the end of the month. Also, Hunting Valley met last Tuesday at the regular council meeting, and their broadband committee proposed that they proceed with final negotiations with both Spectrum and Ohio Gig. Note that those are 2 very different proposals and 2 very different solutions. So we're staying connected with them. And I think that's it. Unless, David, you were at the Hunting Valley meeting, if you have anything to
No,
add.
I think they're going to come back to council with a recommendation in either 30 or 60 days. It was unclear. I think
Right.
probably a couple of months. They want to get this thing closed out quickly.
Yeah, they're moving quickly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is, are there any other committee reports before I move on that we didn't know about? No? Next is Police Department.
Hi, my name is Betsy.
So is there any kind of time frame that you're looking at? And I know it's really Ann Whitney's kind of baby, so to
She's our
speak, but
chair.
is there any kind of time frame? Just because, like, oh my God, I think we hate our internet service providers, right?
You know, I think once we get the financial viability study and we know what the options are, we'll be able to have a better idea of what the time frame would be. it really depends on the provider that's chosen and the method that's chosen as to how quickly it might be done. For example, Spectrum might be a lot faster, but it has advantages and disadvantages. So hopefully next month we'll have more information for you. I know everybody's kind of dying for more speed. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
Good evening, everybody. Everybody should have received a copy of my monthly report. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have. Just a couple items of note for the month of May, the May report. You can see we had a 4-car accident down the Garden Club. Elderly lady inadvertently hit the gas pedal and she struck 3 other vehicles. No injuries, just property damage. So we had that. I also gave a little synopsis of the St. Francis Church Festival. It was, pretty quiet Thursday, Friday, Sunday was more or less a washout in the afternoon, but Saturday was some activity. We had to call Mayfield Heights for some assistance. Some similar to what we had, I think, up there last year. Nothing that, we didn't get a handle on. So, no arrests were made or anything like that. So, I think you have to come to expect those sorts of things at some of these church festivals now. And, that's all I really have in my report. I did provide council with, I was asked to provide a little bit of a traffic camera update, should be on the back side of my report. If you had a chance to review that, I could certainly respond to any questions you might have on that.
2 items, Chief. About how many people attend the St. Francis Carnival?
It's hard to say. They actually shortened the hours up this year on the weekends. Actually, it was 1 hour each day. So,
1 hour shorter.
well, yeah, so last year was 11 o'clock, this year was 10 o'clock. And so, it helped, but you're getting a lot of kids that come up, just like any other festival. So, that's just what happens. So, but it's hard to say. I mean, I really don't have a number. They are going to have a debriefing sometime in early July. I will be attending that, so I'll be able to get those figures for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody have any questions?
Did the spy cameras work all right? You said you were gonna put some spy cameras in there.
Oh, you talked about it at the festival, Church Festival? Yeah, we did have a county camera up there and we did review it when we did have an incident up there and it was helpful for sure. We were able to kind of, hone in on, what had transpired. There was some pepper spray deployed by some teenagers against another group of teenagers. Some of our officers caught some overspray from that, during, the breakup. So, once again, we were able to just kind of zoom in on that to see what was going on. Yeah, Mr. Baker?
And I read your report, and it was very helpful. You mentioned the 4.5% over 60.
Charlie, can you use the microphone? Because it's going to be recorded. They won't be able to hear you.
If we're, in my experience with the safety committee that I'm on, I thought we talked about 56 degree as a cutoff point.
Well, we wouldn't be administratively able to handle that. There's no question about that. I mean, we don't have that kind of work capacity to do that. And we also want to go after the 4%, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
96% of the people are in compliance. And we
Right.
have said all along that we want to focus on the most egregious speeders. In my mind, that's the 4% that we're seeing. So,
Yeah, the over 60s. But if we go down to 57 or 58 degrees, it adds another 3 or 4%. And it's getting to be a pretty, you run the numbers, it gets to be a pretty darn large number of that 7,000
Right.
vehicles.
right.
That's vehicles eastbound. My recollection was that when the state did it, we had about 13,000 total east and west plus west on a daily basis. I don't know what that was, a couple, 3 years ago.
The most recent ODOT study was March of last year. And the numbers that we're seeing now are consistent with that.
Okay. So it looks as though we're talking about a lot of dollars now. And I just wondered how that fits into our budget and how that's going to
Well, I would caution you and others, it's really hard to say. I can share with you, I did get a report from the company, Gatso, today, and I have a 34-day, there's a 34-day track record here. From day one, which was May 13th, to where we are now, it has significantly dropped. And I think the reason for that is word of mouth. And you got to remember, signage is not in place yet.
Right.
Things like that. It's getting around. So it's actually doing exactly what we wanted to do right now. So to give you an example, like on the 13th of May, which was the first day, we were averaging about 6.54% cars going over 60 miles an hour. So on 6/15, we were down to 3.5. So we have been told by the company in their experience with everybody else, they generally see about 2 to 3%.
So it really has worked in terms of.
It has.
Speed down.
It
Well, that's working
absolutely
here.
has. It has
That's-
worked.
Yeah, that was what the whole purpose of the thing to start with.
Exactly.
That is
Not
correct.
revenue,
Slow it down.
you know.
But as far as the numbers go, I mean, again, we just don't know where they're going to be at. We don't have a baseline. It's hard to say. So, I think once we continue to get into this, and we can always go back and look at things, the speeding threshold, things of that nature as we move forward.
Just as we're trying to estimate, what percentage of people actually pay their fine? Do we have any idea from other communities?
60%, 65, some are at 50 with the first notice. Every community is just a little bit different.
So it isn't as high as 90%.
No, I don't think it is. No.
All right, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
thank
it
you.
shouldn't be that high.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief?
Quick question, that the portable speed device signs that you put up, Chief, do they record data at all?
Yes, they do.
Oh, okay, interesting. So when you put those up, you would have an idea of what was happening on the roadway? Because it seems as though you've used those recently.
Well, we do. We try, we use them, about 9 months, 10 months out of the year. We have 2 of them, and generally, we try to keep one on the north side, one on the south side, move it around every week or so. We do have one in for service right now, so there's only one that's operational. So we're hoping to get the other one back. It was just picked up for service like 2 weeks ago. And so, we're probably going to be receiving that back here in the next couple of weeks.
So does the data help you with, any type of further action or?
It does, but we don't always collect the data. That's a separate program in there. It depends on what we want to use. If we're specifically looking for data, we'll go ahead and download all that. We'll set it up for that. I have one of the officers who handles that for me. So, it like anything else, it just kind of depends on what we're looking to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
You said they're in service, and this is because of malicious destruction, or are they just failing?
Oh, well, we've ordered a new unit last year. Now, I want to be clear, we're talking about, because there's, we have different types of cameras. Are you talking about what Lori's talking about, the unit, like you may have seen it on the way in? We have it right in business, as you enter the business district. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. The first unit's older. So, they're about, I think they're about $4,000, $5,000. So we're going to see if we can go ahead. We are going to go ahead and repair this one. And, we'll hopefully get a couple more years out of it, but we may look to budget one in for next year.
Speak into the microphone.
Yeah, my question was, is this malicious destruction of the unit, or is this just failure?
Oh, it's just failure. Yeah, that's all it is.
Parts wear out.
Do we still have?
Batteries, chargers, just over time. Actually, that first unit, it's kind of caught me off guard.
Do we still have that original one, that $16,000?
No, that's been gone. That was the trailer one. Yeah, that's been
Long gone.
That's been decommissioned. But the first one was 2016, the one that we're referring to, and the one we bought last year.
Thanks.
You bet. Anything else?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is Service Department. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a copy of my monthly report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
One question, Dave.
Yes.
640 Sugar River Road, from the road at least, it doesn't seem to be changing very much. Do you have a rough timeline on what the program is for that property?
I have not. I did, about a week ago, I asked him for a tentative construction schedule. I did follow up with another email requesting it, and I did call him today. What he has told me is that either this week or early next week, he's going to complete the basement waterproofing and the backfill. Hopefully pour the basement concrete floor, and within about a week and a half to two, we'll start the framing on the structure.
Thank you.
Certainly. One quick thing, I think Chris left some pictures on the table. I'll give you a little bit more detail in my next month's report because we did this in July. This was an emergency repair we had to do on Gates Mills Boulevard. I'm sure everybody pretty much travels that and saw the lane closure. This started with a small little 6-inch hole, sinkhole, which is the first picture you see with the barricade and the cone. Ended up having to be a 15 by 20 by 23 feet deep excavation. What we found, which is in the lower right, is a 20-inch, I think it was, Chris, 24-inch clay storm water culvert collapsed, which was causing the 6-inch sinkhole. So we did get that repaired. We're going to keep it restricted to one lane. Everything is done other than the asphalt pavement, which we'll have completed once the contractor comes in for the road program. So that area will remain reduced to one lane until we get the pavement completed. And again, I'll provide you a little more detail on with the pictures in next month's report. There are no other questions. That concludes my report.
Dave, this work was done by an outside firm?
Yes, because of the depth, and you can see in that picture in the lower left, you need a trench box because of the depth, which we don't have. And the machine had to be, because of the depth, an extended arm machine, which we don't have. So in looking both timing, trying to get it done before we lost more of the pavement. And two, by the time I rented what equipment we would need, it was just much quicker, more cost effective to hire an outside contractor to get in and get it fixed.
Thanks.
Certainly. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dave. Next is Fire Department, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a copy of the fire department report for May, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Questions from the audience?
I had a reasonably serious accident about 3 weeks.
Microphone.
I had a reasonably serious accident. I'll show you the pictures if you'd like. But anyway, I ended up in the hospital, and the response and the service was absolutely fabulous and got me there in good shape. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you guys have done.
I'll pass that along to the crew.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Just touching on what our treasurer said, as far as the EMS costs, if you look at my report, you'll see that year-to-date numbers for EMS, last year at this time, we were at 56, and this year we're at 99. So, a significant increase in call volume, which is going to be a significant increase in cost.
Any particular thing that made that higher? I mean,
No,
car
just
accident?
more,
or-
no, there weren't multiple vehicle accidents that caused, injuries. So just really individual calls. That concludes the fire department report.
Thank you. Okay, next is ordinance 2023-18. This is, this is going to be on second reading. We had a meeting just before this meeting with representatives of the historic board and the architectural board and our law director and Dave, and this is going to change. We would like talk through a variety of things, and you'll get the input and flow chart for the July meeting, which will be a third reading, actually. Next is resolution.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Where do we stand on creating the task force for preservation of buildings?
Well, we are working with Celeste. Celeste and Lori came up with like an agreement kind of thing. And as soon as we get the historic boards kind of straightened out, if you will, at the July meeting, then we're going to go forward with that part of it. It's kind of two separate things. We want them to function the right way.
They should be integrated, obviously.
Pardon me?
They should be integrated.
Well,
However-
it will be, but one is the function of the two meetings and a flow chart to go with it so that our residents understand what they need to do in order to get a permit. And then applying to the historic board's charge of in the historic district.
I see at the bottom of the page, we've changed our village name to Gates Mills Heights.
Pardon me?
Bottom of the resolution, page 1, it says Gates Mills Heights.
Gates Mills Heights, that's interesting. That's.
I thought we were in a valley. So this must have been used somewhere else some other time, I'm suggesting.
Thank you. Next is resolution 2023-19. This is a resolution authorizing an emergency services agreement with Mayfield Village to provide provision for emergency medical services. And we negotiated with Mayfield Village. We started out at a 17% increase and we wound up at 2%. And a 3-year contract, we went to a 5-year contract. So we were very pleased with what we ended up with. And this is on first reading.
I would just add that Janet and Karen did a wonderful job navigating that conversation to get us to the result we got to. You know, a 2 or 3% increase in this environment is tremendous, especially given challenges of other municipalities nearby. And as you can see, it comes at a great time because the number of calls is way up. So you know, an average call is $2,300, I think, here, and that's only up 3% from the year before. So thank you to the team in the building, Janet and Karen, and I'm sure others.
Thank you. Next is resolution.
Excuse me, could I make a couple of comments on this?
Oh, sure.
if I may? I've talked to several people around the place and the belief is that we're being charged a lot of money by Mayfield. I'm happy you were able to contain the increase this year. That's good. But we don't have any real alternatives. And I see this contract can be canceled by either party for any reason with 12 months notice. And I wonder what we would do in the event Mayfield Village decided that they couldn't afford it or didn't want the trouble of doing it. And I think it would be a good idea if the safety committee reviewed what options might be. That's my first point. My second point is that the mayor of Solon was in hot water 2 weeks ago because of an incident in Solon where somebody was very upset. The time between contacting the dispatch center and the EMS vehicle arriving was 11 minutes. And the mayor made the point that that was unacceptable in Solon, and he's going to do something about it. We'll have to listen to that. But my point is that the best endeavors, they're attempting to get to us in 12 minutes maximum, and that doesn't include the dispatch center lag time. So I'm wondering if 12 minutes is good enough.
I think I've always heard 7 minutes is the goal, but our chief, do you want to speak to that?
I think 7 minutes is typical in urban settings.
The goal would be between 4 and 5 minutes,
Between what and what?
4 and 5 minutes
Between the call to the dispatch center and
for
arrival at the
EMS
scene.
purposes. That can only be accomplished with having a lot of resources and having them close to the communities. The 12 minutes that's been referred to in the contract over the last quite a few years was taking the drive time from Mayfield Village's station on Som Center to the southernmost address in Gates Mills. And that's where that 12-minute reference came to. certainly the goal is less than that. I think the last research I did on it, I averaged out the numbers and it averaged to about 7.3 minutes. Now, of course, there's ones that are longer than that too, you know, to get to that 7.3. But that's worst case scenario is the southern tip of our village, given the location of the ambulance.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And that last research was over the last 2 to 3 weeks. As part of this negotiation, we talked about
Yes.
what some of the standards of performance ought to be, and 12 minutes was viewed again as that kind of extreme point to
Right.
point. And the average stats that you looked up were 7.5 minutes.
Yep, 7.3, 7.4.
Thank you, Chief.
You know, we're forgetting too what the police department does because they're there almost instantaneously and they do have AEDs in the cars. And they're really our first responders and they deserve a lot of credit for.
Yes, they are. They do a
Yes.
good job with that too.
And they're all trained in
5 to
CPR.
7 minutes is phenomenal in this business because by the time you get a crew together and get the thing out of the garage and get it fired up and, you know, it's very time consuming and you know, Cleveland's doing 20 minutes and it's still acceptable to them. So, but as long as the policeman's there, you know, with the AED, the cardiac is the one you worry about. You have 3 minutes and they've done a great job.
Any other questions on that? Thank you.
Police, they were there at our house about 4.5 or 5 minutes. I mean, it was.
Thank-
really well done. So the-
Thank you.
the timing was great with 2 cars. Just, you know, they really knocked themselves out.
Next is resolution 2023-20. And this is first reading. Do we need to say anything more since we can't suspend or just read it? Okay, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5th one-year extension to agreement for the provision of the school resource officer services with the Mayfield City School District and declare an emergency. So we'll just read it because we can't suspend tonight. Next is resolution
Can I ask
2023.
a question, Mayor?
Yes,
Does the the reimbursement cover the cost of, part of the cost of Officer Kimbrough's car? Because he does cover 2 Mayfield City School sites. And I think we justified getting a new car for a new squad car to make sure he had the ability to get from one to the other. So oughtn't that to be covered in the reimbursement from Mayfield City Schools?
Chief, do you want to speak to that?
Do you want to use this one?
I think. So that's not specifically spelled out in there. I will say that really it's a hand-me-down car that he uses. It's one of the old police cars that we decided to go ahead and keep instead of trading in. So the one that he typically drives is probably over 100,000 miles. So you know, it's worth very little value if we were to trade it in. So that's typically what he uses. And you know, it's also a benefit too. And there has been times when Officer Kimbrough has been in transit from, say, to the school here to the port center. And he will catch some alarms for us or whatever calls may be if he's en route. So that's just kind of like an added benefit when you know, he takes a marked police car.
Well, thanks. But my question was simple. Does the reimbursement include acknowledging the car?
No,
It does not. Okay, thank you.
no, I don't think it's specifically spelled
That's
out.
all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Are we still at 80% then?
It hasn't changed. It's right around, I think it's 78. It may be 80. I'd have to look at that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next is resolution 2023-21. It's first reading. It's a resolution expressing the intent of the Village of Gates Mills in 2023 to sell by internet auction personal property, including motor vehicles or other property referenced in Ohio Revised Code 721.15, which is no longer needed for public use or is obsolete or unfit for use for which it was acquired, authorizing GovDeals.com, Inc. to perform the sales and authorizing the sale of specific personal property by internet auction. Any questions? Okay, next is Resolution 2023-22. A resolution awarding a contract to repair and resurfacing of various public roads in 2023 and declaring an emergency. Now, Chris and Dave, are you going to speak to this, or Chris?
Your microphone isn't working.
So much for making it through a week without a microphone being.
Put it close to your mouth so I can hear.
So we've talked extensively with Chip, Janet, Dave and myself about where this year's bids came in. We think they came in favorably to the village. We have a couple different options for award depending on what the budget looks like for the year. One includes the service department repaving back here where we've got concrete that's breaking up and some asphalt that's deteriorating. That amount would be a not to exceed $750,000. When bundled with the overage from last year's road program, that puts us right at the $1.1 million number that was included in this year's budget and in the long-term plan. The other option that we had for award at this point was to not include the service department paving, which would make the award about $688,000, which provide a little more wiggle room in the budget, especially in light of what just happened on Gates Mills Boulevard. But we have a couple different options to discuss, and then also attached in your packet was an analysis of this year's budget, given where we are and what we could award for the road program, and then also where we stand in our multiple year road program, showing that we've still got about $2.2 million worth of road work to do on our program to address the worst roads in the village. Fortunately, next year, with next year's program, we should be addressing the worst of the worst, which is all the failed roads, and then we start knocking off some of the roads that ranked in the poor condition.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so we will let you know when works best to have a meeting. Are there any other council matters? Any business from the audience? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Deegan,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Thank you.
You too.